Okay, everybody. Hey, how are you doing? This is Powell Chi here. Going to be doing my self-storage investing live stream. Let me just check the audio just before I get started. I've had issues with this before, so give me 1 second here. All right, all right, all right, all right. We're good to go. Okay, good to go. So awesome, awesome. Today is July 12th, and we're going to be doing our kind of a series that I've been doing over the last couple of weeks. Is really about just Q&A. I just get a lot of questions and every week, and so I figure it's easier to answer them on doing a live stream, to answer them with everybody rather than just answering the same questions to individuals. So today, let's get into some Q&A. Self-storage is an easy class to understand, especially if you're coming from a multifamily background. But with all the questions I'm getting, like I said, it's just easier to answer it all at one time. So just a quick introduction. My name is Powell Chi, and I am a self-storage investor. I'm a managing partner of Radiant Storage. We are the premier self-storage investing team available. So if you are interested in finding out more about us, stay tuned, because we'll answer some questions and then we'll be able to get into ways to work with us at the end. So all right, so today I've got some great questions that people have asked. Would love for you to like and subscribe. I appreciate the people that have already given me some likes right there. Thank you very much. And also, if you can, I think there's a way for you guys to post. If you post in the comments, I should be able to read them as well. So post your questions. If you have questions in the comments, put them in the comments and I should be able to get to them. Also, if you let me know where you're coming in from. I know some of you, I don't know all of you, but happy to, just discuss, make this more of a discussion rather than just be talking on the screen the whole time. Okay. So, all right, ready. Let's get to those burning questions. Let's do it. Okay. So, all right, let's get into this question that I got first here. Question number one. Recession resistant. Okay, it was all along the lines of being recession resistant, right? Self-storage being a recession resistant asset class. Now, I get this question all the time about what does this mean, especially nowadays, right? People are starting to feel very, uneasy about the way the economy is going right now, and recessions are sort of on people's mind. So what has happened in the past? Self-storage is a fairly new asset class. I would say probably the first self-storage facilities were built in 1970, really kind of took off in more like the 80s, 90s, and then started just growing right after the 2010-ish. So during 2008, 2009, that recession, self-storage did extremely well in terms of the asset classes, extremely well. I think it outperformed pretty much every commercial real estate class. And there was very few CMBS loans that were basically considered in default. Very few. I mean, a handful, 5 or less than that happened during that time. Whereas most other asset classes during 2008, 2009 suffered a lot. And so because of that, it didn't lose a lot of money, the REITs themselves still did pretty well during that time. It became seen as a pretty recession-resistant asset class. Then in 2020, which was basically COVID, right? So the year and a half of COVID. So 20 to 21, it was kind of let's see how self-storage does during that time. Self-storage did extremely well. I'm very well compared to all real estate asset classes. You can think about it as this: during the pandemic, what happened? Everybody was basically shut down. So everybody moved home. And so if people's houses became very full, people started buying all kinds of pets, and their house is full of kids because they can't go to school. And so, people had to convert their second bedrooms or other bedrooms into, it was an office before, and they could create an office / out of their bedroom, so it's kind of like a mixture of dining room offices and stuff like that. So what happened is like all this cramped space that people had, so they had to put all their stuff somewhere. So self-storage was an essential business. So it was open the whole time across the nation. It was actually it was closed very shortly in part of California, like in Los Angeles. Part of Los Angeles was, I don't know, shut down for a week or two. But besides that, it was basically open the whole time. And a lot of self-storage facilities, including ours, had moved towards more of a remotely managed self-storage operations anyway. So like our facilities were always like that. So it was nothing different for our facilities. They were just open. You didn't really need to talk to anybody in the office, and there wasn't anybody in the office to talk to anyway. Everything could be done on your phone, through our call center or just online. And so during this time, all of self-storage did extremely well. And like, in terms of the big boys, the small boys, the off markets, the mom and pops, the institutions, everybody did really well. They filled up and became extremely full. Rents really went up very high. I will tell you, as of recent, that is not the case anymore. We've kind of gone back. So if you look at a lot of metrics of what has happened, it's really, we've sort of gone back to around 2019, where rates were, where occupancy was. So there has been a softening. It's not as in demand as it was during COVID, but that was kind of an anomaly, right? It was like that year to year and a half of just being extremely full and rates being very, very high. And it's kind of calmed down now. So that's where that's a little bit about being recession resistant. During the last two heavy recessions, self-storage did extremely well. So that's why right now, as people are starting to think like, wow, inflation's going crazy and whatever, war in Ukraine and all kinds of stuff that is going on, and feeling like, hey, there might be a recession on the, in the near term here. A lot of people are flocking towards self-storage as an asset class. There are some differences between 2008, 2020, and now. Self-storage itself has become way more popular during that time. I myself have also invested during this time, so I haven't been investing since 2008 or 9. But there's been a lot more self-storage built during that time as well. So there's, it's not just like just because you have a self-storage business means you're going to be successful, right? There's a lot more that goes into it. But as a general asset class, it is recession resistant, and the reasons why. Let's get into the reasons why it's considered as a recession resistant. Not only this history during the last two recessions, but it's I would say self-storage is it's influenced. I don't know. There's a better word for it, but its demand is always there because of what a lot of people like to call the 4 Ds. Okay, the 4 Ds of self-storage. So let's talk about the 4 Ds of self-storage. What are they? The first one is death. Okay, these are kind of morbid. All right, so they're not all bright and shiny, but death. And death happens whether we're in a good economy or a bad economy. And when people die, they leave stuff, and sometimes that stuff gets transferred to heirs, and the heirs don't want to get rid of it, but they want to hold on to it. And there's sentimental value. And so what are we going to do with it? We don't have room for it. Let's put it in storage and put there for a while. So death is a driver for self-storage. Downsizing. Okay. That's another one. Downsizing is another driver for self-storage, meaning as recessions happen, people downsize, and some people move from single family to start renting. Some rent from class A, nice spacious apartments. They go down to class B, kind of a little bit more, a little bit smaller, a little bit older. People go from class B to class C, and they go from that to sort of working class apartments, and they just don't have as much room, right? So you don't have as much room for those couches and those large beds and dressers and desks and everything that was collected during these past few years. So downsizing is one of the main drivers of self-storage, which happens during recessions. Okay. A third one, dislocation. Dislocation is a third driver for self-storage, meaning moving. And what happens during a recessionary period is that people lose jobs, people move, people don't want to live in the same area because um, just life circumstances that they'd rather pick up their family and move somewhere else. And when moving locations happens, storage becomes much more in use. Meaning that if I'm going to move somewhere across the country, I may not be able to move in or I may not be able to move my stuff there and then unload it exactly that same day and get it all out and into my new place. I might have to store it for a little while, or I might not need to store all of it. I might need to store some of it because I moved everything over there. But I realized that the place is smaller and I don't have as much room for a lot of these storage bins and boxes and bikes and kayaks and skis and snowboards and stuff like that. So where am I going to put it? I don't really want to throw it away. So I'll just put it in I'll put it in storage for a little while. So that is the third main driver for self-storage. Now, the fourth one is divorce. When divorce happens, you can just kind of plainly see that, hey, somebody has to move out. Now there's a lot of stuff. And when somebody has to move out or a house gets sold, it's splitting of the family. Well, a lot of times there's a lot of stuff that needs to be put into somewhere else, somewhere new. And the new place may not have the room for all these things. Okay. And that is, again, a driver for self-storage. So during recessions, these things happen: death, downsizing, dislocation, and divorce. So they'll happen in a recession, or they'll happen in times where the economy is going well. So that's why self-storage had done really well during those times, and is predicted to probably do well in upcoming recession as well. Okay. All right. Sounds good. Good on this recession resistant and the 4Ds of storage. All right. Who else is out there? Like, if you're out there, put your name in the chat. Tell me who you are. Let me know what questions you have too. Okay. All right. So let's go to this next one. Okay. I think this is a question I got. I was talking to one of my friends, Dave. Dave, you might be out here right now. We were talking about this yesterday. All right. So JVs versus syndications. Okay. So some of you have probably been hearing about, hey, this is a syndication. This is a JV. What's the difference? And why is one a JV and one's a syndication? What does that all mean? Okay. I'm not going to, this topic could take, a full day of talking about, but I'm just going to try to talk about it in sort of a general sense. All right. It deals with your partners. Okay. And when you're structuring this, there's these two ways. JV means joint venture. Okay. So joint venture or syndication. Now, a joint venture is basically easy to think about as a simple partnership where everyone is active. Okay, so you have a simple partnership. There's 4 or 5 of you. Everybody's active. Everybody has some type of voting rights, or so people have certain duties that they're involved in the partnership, and they're very easy to create. You're basically creating a partnership. So you create an entity, you register with your state, and you create an operating agreement. Everybody signs the operating agreement, agrees to the parameters inside the operating agreement, and you've created a joint venture, and then you're off and running and going to get a self-storage now. So that is one way, easy way, very flexible, not too expensive, and is done. Every single day there are probably hundreds of thousands of these things being created. Right. Now, syndication is a much more complex structure and has a lot of requirements, nuances that, again, could take a full day to explain. I'm just going to talk in general again. But a syndication, I generally try to tell people it's basically like pooling people's money together and going like a large group of people, pooling the money together, and then splitting the group between two main, categories. There is the general partners, who are the active team. So the general partners are the people making the decisions. They're considered active. All right. So they're actually doing something They have responsibilities. They are liable also. So in terms of liability, they are liable for actions that get taken with the partnership, and that's who they are. Okay, so they're people that kind of in charge. The other side of it, the other is the limited partners. So LPs, they're often called LPs or passive investors. These are all kind of synonymous in that there's a group of people who are basically putting in money to the deal. And when they're putting in the money into the deal, they're passive in their role. So they don't have an active role. They're not, and they're not liable. Okay. So in terms of the partnership, they're only liable for the money that they actually put in, right? So they could lose that money, but in terms of like being sued for negligence or fraud or whatever things, they're not the ones that would be targeted. It would be the active investors. Okay. So limited partners, are the ones that are bringing in the money, and so they get a certain split of that, right? So there's the general partnership and the limited partnership, and that's together. Those two are creating a syndication, and then there's a lot more regulations and rules about what you can do to raise this money and who you can raise from. Maybe that's a topic for another day. But so those are the two structures, right? A joint venture and a syndication. Syndication is going to cost more. It's going to involve a lawyer for sure. I mean, you're going to have to get a private placement memorandum. The document's like 100 pages. You're going to need a subscription agreement. You're going to need, accreditation letters or self-accreditation from your investors. You're going to need to file blue sky filings. There's a lot that goes into it. So you really want to have a lawyer guide you through this. Okay. And it's going to cost, 10, 15, somewhere around that. It's going to $10,000, $15,000. Okay. Each syndication that you do. So that's, you want to do them. Why would somebody do a joint venture versus a syndication? Maybe that's a question too, right? The reason why you're going to do one versus the other is generally, how much money can you raise through your joint venture? If it's, whatever money that you can raise through your structure, you're going to be limited by sort of that money in terms of buying something. So if everybody in your joint venture, you have 4 people and everybody comes in with 250,000, collectively, you have $1 million. Well, you can go buy a property, somewhere in the $3 million range or so. So you're limited by that much. Whereas a syndication, you might be able to pull together 50, 100 investors and raise $5, $10 million or something. You raise $10 million. Well, now you can go buy a $30 million property, right? So that's the reason why. So on these larger properties, people are more likely to syndicate because the joint venture themselves is going to have a harder time just having a few people be able to cover that large amount. Now, there's other ways to sort of do that, but that's probably beyond the scope of this Q&A call. Okay, so hopefully that gave you sort of a reasons why to do joint ventures or syndications, or when to do them and what's the difference between them. I've done both. I continue to do both. I've done syndications. I've done 506Bs. I've done 506Cs. I've also done joint ventures with just a small group of people. And I don't know, if you ask me what's my preference, I would prefer to do a joint venture. I'll tell you that. So I just think that there's it's funner to do when you have like 7 people and you're going to go and talk to your friends and feel good about everybody being active and everybody just involved, and you have a great relationship with everybody because they're your friends that you've had for a while. So that all said, let's move on. Okay, let's go on to the next one. So anybody have any other comments or posts or anything like that? Yeah, feel free to write and tell me where you are coming from. Okay, and okay, and all right. Let's see, what questions? Okay. All right. Hey, let's see. Let's say hi to people here. So, hey, Grace. Grace, thank you for joining. Okay, let's see. Thank you for joining. Question is pros and cons about owning a self-storage business. Okay. Um, let's get into that. So, what are the pros and cons about owning a self-storage business? So, thank you so much, Grace, for asking that question. Let's see. I mean, there's going to be a lot of benefits, right? I mean, if you're a real estate investor, you understand what are the benefits of real estate investing. So there's obviously you're getting income, right? You're getting consistent income throughout the time. The renters are paying you monthly, just like a multifamily property. They're paying you monthly, and then whenever you're doing your books, whether that's monthly or quarterly or yearly, you're hoping that there's going to be a distribution, and that's going to be cash flow that you're going to get throughout the year, right? So you're going to get income. A big benefit is depreciation, right? So you're going to have a lot of depreciation when we do these self-storage facilities. We are able to depreciate a significant amount of our taxes, or take a large depreciation loss on our K1 on our taxes. And year one, because we do a getting tongue-tied here, a cost segregation study, and those cost segregation studies, they don't cost that much, but they're really beneficial for you for basically shielding a lot of your income. All right. So those of you who have high amounts of income or are looking for tax benefits, obviously real estate is huge in that. Now, I will tell you this one thing, that kind of going off on a little tangent here on depreciation, is that when I first thought about depreciation and cost segregation studies, when I compared, say, multifamily or residential versus self-storage, residential is going to have windows and flooring and hot water heaters, or roofs, all kinds of different mechanicals that are there, right? And you're thinking, well, I'm going to get to accelerate the depreciation on those items. So what about self-storage? I mean, what are you accelerating? Like, they have a door and they have a roof and they have walls, but what can you depreciate on a self-storage facility? The funny thing is, though, actually self-storage is one of the asset classes that depreciates or accelerates the depreciation the most of other asset classes. I thought it was going to be very small. I thought it was going to be like residential is going to be so much more. There's many more mechanical things there. But self-storage is actually very high. So we've actually been able to have a large amount of depreciation for our investors. So we said income, we said depreciation. Let's say appreciation, right? Obviously, you're improving the property, so you're appreciating. The property's appreciating. You're using leverage. So just like on your real estate property, you can, or we do. We use leverage. You use a bank, finance things. All that makes it beneficial for you as an investor. So those are all great things. Let me just maybe specifically self-storage is that in general, it's easier to manage, right? The management process of self-storage compared to residential is much easier. You just think about it. You're just managing people's stuff, right? You aren't managing people, you're managing their stuff. Self-storage is actually fairly technologically advanced. You don't think about, you think like a bunch of boxes and a warehouse. How is that technologically advanced? Well, websites for self-storage are more advanced than they are for, say, like multifamily. You have to be able to, people have to be able to go to your website, click rent now, buy now, sign leases, and go ahead and get a text message or an email sent, rebounded back to them right away with their information, basically instantly, so that they can go to their facility. All of that, there's like Bluetooth locks that are available. There's all kinds of video surveillance equipment that's pretty like AI based and things. There's a lot of different things in self-storage that the technology is actually is pretty advanced compared to other asset classes in real estate. For example, dynamic pricing. So self-storage facilities have the ability to have dynamic pricing, similar to what you would think of like the hotels or airlines, where the prices will go up and down according to it. If you try to book on a Friday versus a Wednesday, versus like if you keep going to that same website, you thought you booked, and if you didn't book within 2 minutes, it's like the price went up. Well, it's not quite like that, or like the airlines are. But you can set certain parameters where, hey, if your place gets over 90% full, well, the price goes, higher, or if the unit size goes down to 80%, well, then we give a slight discount on the price, and it fluctuates, and you could set those parameters to what you want. It could be by unit size. So like a 5x5 can have a different discount than your 10x10s, then your 10x20s, then your 10x15s. They can all be set at different, or you can set them the same, but they can be kind of independent in that one size unit is actually full price, but the other size unit is a 20% discount. So that can all be set sort of automatically. Let me see. Like I said, the maintenance part is easier. The auctions part, so the auctions versus evictions. Auctions is a lot more favorable to a self-storage investor. Let's get into the cons. Okay, so enough of the pros. All right, cons of being a self-storage investor. I don't know if there's a specific con about being a self-storage investor, but I will say that it is getting hotter in terms of like more popular right now. And so there's more competition coming in. There is also the major threat with self-storage is demand. Okay, is decreasing demand, and you decrease demand by oversupply. Okay, it's kind of like the supply and demand, intersection. So if you're in an area where there is growing supply, or some more supply is coming online, like meaning people are building more, or they're expanding more self-storage in your 3 to 5 mile radius, that can affect your property, right? I would say that's a little different than multifamily. So multifamily, if you have a C-class property and somebody develops an A-class property right next to you, you're probably like, yeah, good. They'll probably drive the rents up. Happy that they're here. Okay, I'll probably get some kind of extra people coming in that might look at my property that were originally looking at that new property. You don't really have that as much in self-storage. So people coming in and building right next to you is basically the major threat with self-storage. Okay, so that what I would say is the con. Okay. Awesome. Okay, so appreciate that, Grace. Thank you for that. Dave Lopez, how you doing, buddy? So an LP isn't liable for something drastic happens on the property they invested in. So they're basically only liable, limited partners in terms of syndications. Obviously, I'm not a lawyer, so don't take my word as the word of the courts. Find your own counsel, but limited partners in a syndication are liable basically for their money that they've invested in there. So they could lose their money, but they're not on the hook for like if the bank takes back the property because of like fraud issues or anything like that they're going to come after the limited partners to make the bank whole. They're not going to do that. They'll go after the general partners. They could, but they're not going after the limited partners. Okay, so limited partner liability is a lot less than the general partners. So great question there, Dave. Thanks for asking. All right. Okay. All right. Gabriel, we got Gabriel Kraft. Thank you for joining. We got a good question here. So let's see. Okay. How are you sourcing your deals these days, and what is your buy box? Okay. Great question. So I've always sourced my deals with brokers. Okay, so I live in California. This is my story of why, right? I live in California and live in Southern California. All the properties that I have bought, whether it's multifamily or storage or even single family, have all been out of state. Right? There's nothing in California, and so they're in Texas, Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, Connecticut for my self-storage facilities. 5 different states. And so I feel like for me, if I was going to go direct to seller, I would really want to choose a market first. You can already tell that I'm not really in one particular market, right? Texas is a humongous market. Louisiana, Mississippi, Alabama, and Connecticut, I'm not really focused on a particular market. Now, if you are, as an investor, you particularly are focused, and you have that laser pointed, and you're saying like, I only invest in Phoenix and Tucson, or whatever market you choose, Kansas City or whatever, you say I only invest in these markets. Well, then you can definitely go off and to go direct to seller and try to find those sellers of those properties, owners of those properties, and try to connect with them personally so that you can get a better deal probably than I can going through a broker. So if you go direct to a seller, you can probably get a better deal, right? You can, maybe there's seller financing, maybe there's some whatever, you can get a better discount. But you have to be able to be in that market. This is the way I feel. Maybe limiting belief, I don't know. But I know that if you told me, hey, if I sent out a bunch of letters and I got a letter back from, I don't know, I got a letter back from somewhere in Knoxville, Tennessee, and it was a property that looked kind of appealing to me. That's in like, yeah, it looks like I would buy that. And the seller was like, yeah, I got your letter. I'm kind of interested in selling, and so why don't you come down here and take a look at it, and then we'll talk. And then I say, well, I'm pretty far away, so how do I? Is there a range of price that you give me? Nah, why don't you just come by and give me a? Well, I want to make sure that the right person. So you come down and we'll talk. We'll hang out, and then we'll talk some numbers and see if I can sell this property. But I might sell it, I might not. Been thinking about it for a couple of years. All right, in that case, am I going to get on a plane to go to Knoxville to figure out if this guy's going to sell to me at some price that may work for me or may not? No, I'm not going to. So, and I'm going to have too many of those if I'm not targeting a specific market, right? And I don't live in those markets. So I don't go direct to seller. It's just, for me, it's kind of like there's too much to chase and not enough like certainty there. So I would rather go with brokers who I know are selling a property. Yes, they are going to take their cut, and yes, they're going to try to get as high of a price as possible because that's what they get paid on the sell price. Their commission is based off the sell price. So I know that all going into it, and I'm okay with that because at least I know that they are working with a seller who wants to sell the property. So that's who I do. Now, I will tell you that some of the deals, not all of them, but some of the deals that I have purchased were off market, but they did come through a broker, right? So they were not marketed to anybody else. Well, they were only marketed to a very select few buyers, like one or two buyers. We happened to be one or two of them. And we ended up purchasing them, and it was through the broker, and we, so they brought it to us, and it was off market. So you can still get off market deals through a broker. But it's but it's not all the time. A lot of the times they are listed, and we get them through a broker, and they're listed, and anybody else could have got them just like we could have. Okay, so that is me, my personal thing. But there's a lot of other people that are very successful just choosing a specific market. They say Atlanta, that's where I live. I will buy anything within 2 hours of Atlanta. Hey, there's tons of self-storage facilities to go out there and look at and try to meet those owners and buy those ones as well. So, kind of to each its own in terms of your strategy. So in terms of buy box for me, the easiest thing for me to tell people right now is like, I'm looking for something that's really in that $5 to probably $10 million range for a single property. Portfolio will be a different story. So $5 to $10 million on around the purchase price. It's, minimum 350,000 gross potential income, minimum probably 35,000 square feet. Can go upwards of there. Those are kind of my general buy box for that I tell people. Okay, but great question, Gabriel. And I do want to illustrate that just because a deal is good for me doesn't mean it's good for somebody else. And just because a deal is not good for me does not mean it's not good for somebody else. Like, if I'm looking for deals that are, say, above $5 million, there's plenty of deals. And I've bought a bunch of deals before that are all under $5 million. It's just that this is where I am right now. But, previously I've bought a bunch of deals that are under 5 million, and I love them. They're great deals, right? And so you could buy a deal that's in your buy box, and it just wouldn't really fit my buy box right now. It doesn't mean it's not a great deal. It just means, it's just different criteria that we have. So hope that answers your question there, Gabriel. Thanks for asking. Let's see. Okay, what do we got? I got another one from Dave here. Dave, let me see. Let's see. Sorry, I posted about the topic. It's here on YouTube. Back to JVs and syndication. Okay, yeah, we already answered that question. Okay, about liability, LP liability in a syndication. Okay, and Gabriel, I think I answered your question. So great, appreciate that. Makes sense. Thank you for the response. Appreciate it. Thank you so much for the kind words there, Gabriel. And let's see. Okay, and Dave, you got another question here. So I mentioned auctions versus evictions. Can you expand upon the legal differences between the two? Yeah, absolutely. This is one of the main differences, right? So when somebody is late, okay, all right. So residential, you are under eviction laws, right? Eviction laws are there for protecting people, the rights of people, kind of slash the rights of property. Okay. The lien laws are what self-storage is governed under, right? They're lien laws, not eviction laws. Lien laws are about stuff. They're about possessions, and they're about like what rights do these possessions have. So the lien laws in all of the United States are much more in favor of the owner, landlord, than they are for the tenant. Okay, so lien laws are just much more in favor of us than eviction laws. Eviction laws, depending on what state you're in, depending on what city you're in, eviction laws can be very landlord friendly, or they can be very tenant friendly, and that is a heavily debated topic nowadays. Should these be, is there a human right to where they can live, or should people live for free? Do they have to pay rent? All kinds of different debates going on right now with rent for people. But I like to tell people that if you think about it, I don't think anybody really in the United States feels like, hey, I have the right to take my stuff, my boxes and my couches and my old TV, and put it on somebody else's property and just leave it there. And that person who owns that property does not have the right to move it, get it off, or sell it, get rid of it, right? I don't know. I don't think anybody thinks that, right? Everybody's kind of like, yeah, if you take your stuff and you put it on somebody else's property, they're probably going to get rid of it, or they're going to charge you money for it. All right, that sounds like pretty agreeable. So the laws are written that way. They're much more in your favor. Now, to give you an example of auctions and evictions. In an eviction, let's just say in general, it depends on where you are and what state, but in an eviction, you are going to have, say day 5, you have 5 days grace period, and then day 6, you're late. Okay, so day 6, you get sort of a late notice. You can, as an owner, you can issue a late notice. Day 15, you're you're putting together something like a, hey, like pay or quit, or pay or leave. And then day 30, you're kind of starting the eviction process. Depending on what state, maybe it takes another month. But let's just say it takes 2 months for the full eviction. And, if it goes badly, and you have to actually forcibly remove somebody, that's another, week or 2 weeks or something. Could take, 60 to 75 days to potentially remove somebody, right? And during that time, you've lost 2 months of rent, at least 2 months, because you probably have more back rent if you're evicting them, right? So you have at least 2 months of back rent. You have late fees that you weren't able to collect. You have lawyers that you have to pay for, which is like $500 for every eviction. Then you have then you get your place back, and it's probably damaged, right? It's probably not pristine. Let's just say it's nice as possible. You still have to clean it, and you still probably have to paint it. So that's at least another $500 to clean it and paint it, right? That's not including if faucets and lights are broken and doors are kicked in and carpets all ripped up, whatever, windows are broken. Obviously, that stuff gets into the thousands. And then, are you gonna get a judgment? Are you gonna be able to collect on somebody like that? I mean, it's gonna be very, very difficult if you're gonna try. You can try and get it, but you're really not going to be able to collect much from somebody that you've evicted from. And so then you take over the property, you have at least $1,000 of money that you have to spend to get it rent ready, right? Lawyer fees and things like that. You're not able to collect your payments that you're owed, and then it's going to take a week or two before you get it painted and cleaned up. So it takes you a little while, and then you finally put it on the market to get it rented. Took you overall 3 months, somewhere in that 3-month range, right, to get it all done. And that's like, in a state that's landlord friendly, right? Other states, it's try to do that in California, it's not even close. You're still under the eviction. You're not even doing any of that move out stuff. Okay, so you already can see you're in at least $1,000. Your back rent, you're missing a couple $1,000. And you had to go through this huge headache, right? Well, in storage timeline, let's say roughly the same, 60, 75 days, for the auction to take place. But here's the difference. Now, when 5 days grace period, okay, they're late. All right, day six at our storage facility, their code gets invalid. They now have an invalid code to get into the facility. So when they punch in their code, it doesn't work. And when they come to the storage facility, so say they're able to hop the fence or get inside there, and they still go to their unit because they have stuff, but they haven't paid anything. Well, there's a lock on it that we put on it. So on day 6, we put a lock. It's called an overlock. And we put our own lock on the facility, on the door. So now they can't get in. So you can't get into this facility, and you can't get into your unit until you pay you basically pay and make your account whole, right? You're not able to do that on an eviction. You cannot put a lock on their door or lock them out of their house. It's a huge red flag, no matter what state. So don't do that. But in self-storage, it's like, you can lock them out of the facility and lock them out of their actual unit, right? Now, when the property goes to auction, so speaking of auction, I have like a little auction thing that I actually talk about today. Let me see if I can. Oops, let me see. I don't need that. Let me show this here. Okay, let me hide myself. Oops, let me just hide this. Okay, this is a screenshot I just took of an auction just now. So you can see that sometimes this is an auction in 5 days, right? Baton Rouge, these are three different units that are getting auctioned, right? You look at the top one right now; it's currently selling for 0, and it might go for 0. Sometimes it goes for 0. The middle one, it's going for $30 right now. So in 5 days, probably go a little bit higher, but let's just say it sells for $30. Look at the bottom one. There's more stuff in there. It looks a little bit more valuable. It's selling right now for $160. Probably go up from there within the 5-day period. But this is just a screenshot that I took right now, just so you can get a kind of an eyes on what auctions, what they look like, and you can go to these websites and look for yourselves and see the things that are on there. But so this auction, so these auctions that take place, say that $30, let me just put that back up here. So $30, say your auction sells for $30. That $30 is first going to come back to pay us, right? Or that $160. That's going to pay us back for all of everything that we're owed. Late fees, back rent, administrative costs, cleaning fees. All those fees that money is going to get paid to cover all those fees first. Okay. And so there is a chance that we get made whole. We get made whole sometimes. There's a chance that we get some of our money back, but there's also a chance that we get 0, right? Some of those things sell for 0 and we don't get any money back, but we would get our unit back. And how much does it cost to turn our unit? How long does it take to turn our unit? Right? Remember, in residential, right? It takes at least $1,000 and probably a week or 2 before that's all scheduled and it's done. I mean, self-storage, you just go there, you sweep it out, right? And you throw away anything that's just kind of just left there, and then you put a new lock on it, and you just type into the system, it's ready to go, right? So in terms of auctions and evictions, that is kind of a sort of a long, lengthy, walkthrough of what the differences are. But you can see that the eviction process is not as advantageous as the auction process is for a self-storage investor. Okay. Great question though, Dave, and I'm glad I was able to make use of that slide a little bit there. Okay, all right. Let's see. Grace, you get another question here. Yeah, two more for it. Okay, what amenities should the facility have? What amenities should the facility have? And number two, do you require insurance and why? Okay, great question. So, what amenities should the facility have? It depends on what class they are. And now there's nothing that they should have. All right, initially what they should have is they should be two things. They should be safe and they should be secure. I mean, those are the two main things of your self-storage facility, right? How do you make it safe and secure? Well, obviously you have, things like fencing, you have things like cameras, you have things that are around that just make people feel like, okay, this place is taken care of. There's not a ton of garbage all over the place. Things that, place is taken care of, and I feel pretty safe here. All right, so that's the number one amenities that you need. Everything else is just kind of nice to have. Not every facility has parking spots. Not every facility has covered parking spots. Not every facility has sells boxes. We don't sell any boxes or tape or bubble wrap or anything like that. We don't sell that stuff. Not every facility has U-Haul as an ancillary service. Some amenities are like mailboxes. So some places have like mailboxes and PO boxes type of thing. So that's an amenity. Some have it depends on where you are. Some have like lounges, kind of like a little bit of lounges where people can drink wine. So there's like wine clubs and that kind of thing happens at some facilities. But things like wine storage or like small expensive lockers, those are other amenities that people have. I guess one amenity we have at one of our facilities, we have a restaurant on top of our facility. Imagine that, a fifth floor. We have 5 floors. The fifth floor has a restaurant on top of it. So have you ever heard of a restaurant on top of a self-storage facility? Well, take a look at one of ours. We got one. It's pretty unusual. But so there's not necessarily something that you have to have. It also depends on, not everywhere has climate controlled. Some are non-climate controlled. We have a bunch that are non-climate controlled. We have a bunch that are climate controlled. Not everyone has outdoor or single-story outdoor climate controlled. That's kind of unusual, right? Outdoor climate controlled, because most climate controlled are indoor, and you have to walk through the hallways to get to these climate controlled ones. But how about outdoor? We have a facility right now that is outdoor climate controlled. Second question, great questions though, Grace. Do we require insurance and why? So do we require insurance? So the answer is yes. So first of all, there's 2 different types of insurance, and this was a question that somebody else was going to bring up too, but we have 2 different types of insurance. So we have our property insurance, right? Our property general liability insurance that we pay for, and that covers the property itself, right? And then we also have tenant insurance. So tenant insurance is a subset of insurance where each tenant is required to have insurance for their belongings. So if their belongings are damaged by rodents or damaged by fire, theft, things like that, they are covered by their tenant insurance. They're required to have that and show proof that they have that tenant insurance. If they don't have tenant insurance, we will enroll them in our tenant insurance automatically. Okay. And tenant insurance for us is a good thing because it helps protect us, but it also is an income generating revenue stream for us. And I'll get into that on another call. But so the answer is yes, we require it. Yes, for liability's sake. Yes, because it's also a revenue stream for us. So in terms of tenant insurance, but great questions. Okay. Hey, we got our Facebook user just completed our first online storage auction. Technology is great. Yeah, you don't have to go there anymore. You can go to these online storage auctions, and you can put your bid out there. And yeah, you can own it. Just pressing a few buttons. Make sure you do claim it probably within 3 days, because as soon as the auction's over, you probably got 3 days to make your claim and get your stuff. And or otherwise you don't, then you lose your deposit, things like that. So, but great job, Facebook user. Get out there and see what kind of goods you can get out of that online auction. And just so you know, if you are an owner and you're in one of my deals or something like that, do not bid on the self-storage auctions. Okay, do not do that. And so you're not supposed to do that. So I don't. I might look at them, but I don't bid on them. I recommend to all these owners, partners of mine, do not bid on them. Don't have your dad bid on it. Don't have your brother bid on it. Things like that. It's like, just don't play that game. Okay, especially of the ones where you own the property. All right, if you're part of the ownership property of that property. If it's somewhere else, then yeah, it's somewhere else. Okay, hope that answers your questions. Thank you so much. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Grace. Gabriel, our Facebook users as well. Thank you so much, everybody. Just going to kind of end this with our last thing for tonight. We do have an exciting self-storage opportunity for people. I will show you this. Let me just show you right now. Let's see, so on. Okay, if you are interested in the world of self-storage investing, we would love to have you, talk to us and let us know. We have this self-storage facility right here. This one is in Tuscaloosa, Alabama, and it's a one that is available right now to invest in. It's a 506c, so that means you have to be an accredited investor to invest in this deal. And it's right here where you can see all this in red, these buildings in the back. It's climate controlled. It's also outdoor climate controlled. It's a really nice facility. We're super happy we have it. Actually, I just took a look at it earlier today, and we are at 97% occupancy. 97%. Now, we don't always want to be at 97%, but because it's so heavy, such a heavy student population in such a heavy student population that we will that there'll probably be a mass exodus once school starts. So, but this self-storage facility is doing really well right now. We're really excited about it, and so if you are interested in it, just feel free. Just the best thing to do is to send me a DM on Instagram, or just write to us at invest@radiantstorage.com. Okay. And that's it for tonight. Love for you to give me a thumbs up or a subscribe or a like, tell your friends. Other than that, I would love for you to submit a question. So write to me on invest@radiantstorage.com. Ask me a question. Hopefully I'll get a chance to answer it on our next call. Okay. Take care, everybody. Thank you so much.